Halloween
forever.
All right, Steven, my boy, how are you doing this fine evening?
I'm doing pretty good, Brian. How are you?
I'm all right. This chilly winter's eve here in the dog shit month of January. But you know what? I got a joke for you, Steve. So this guy walks into a bar, right? He's got a giant pumpkin for a head.
Mm-hmm.
Bartender says, "Whoa, what's going on, buddy?" He said, "Well, you wouldn't believe it, but I found one of those genie lamps, you know, and I rubbed it, and a genie came out, gave me 3 wishes." He said, "No shit. Well, what'd you wish for?" He said, "Well, first of all, I wished for $100 million. He said, "Wow. Well, did it come true?" He said, "Yeah, came true. It's in my bank account right now. It's amazing." He said, "Wow. What else?" He said, "Well, I wish that I would be irresistible to beautiful women all over the world." And he said, "Well, how'd it go?" He said, It's going awesome. It's fantastic." He said, "Well, what else?" He goes, "Well, I had 3 wishes." He said, "What was your 3rd wish?" He said, "I wished for a giant pumpkin head." Boys and girls, too.
God damn it.
Very, very special Minisode of Halloween is forever. I'm Brian.
I'm Steve. Like,
What do you think? I mean, obviously, why else would he have a fucking big giant pumpkin head?
Yeah, yeah, obviously. I guess what I was waiting for is usually you theme your jokes to the episode.
Yeah, nope.
And
this is just a joke that I heard and made me laugh very hard. And then I told Kate, and she pissed her pants. And then everyone else I told hated it. And I feel like this joke, this joke was described to me when I heard it as kind of one of those litmus test jokes, you know.
Right. Yeah.
So I said, you know what? Let's throw it out there, see what happens.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, I get it. It's. I guess it worked worse on me because I was expecting a frog at some point.
You were,
because there are like 100 and to the nth million degrees number of frogs in bar jokes.
Sure.
And I was like, where's the frog come in? And then you just ended it with, "I wish for a giant pumpkin for a head." I'm like, oh, okay. I guess we're abruptly stopping here.
Yeah, there's no frog. It's nothing about frogs. It'd be too easy. Got to keep you on your toes, Steven. It's January. Like I said, it is the absolute most dog shit month of the year. The holidays are behind us, and we're on to other spooky matters, one of which is our punishment episode. I will not spoil it for you just yet, because you can know that this is a punishment episode without me, telling you who won the showdown episode. So maybe I won't spoil it for you. Maybe because we did our first ever Royal Ruckus.
Regal Ruckus.
Regal Ruckus. Jesus Christ. Regal Ruckus for the showdown episode of January, which was a lot of fun. First time ever us doing something like that with a whole bunch of guests. So go back and check it out. But spoiler alert, not too much of a spoiler, just a little bit of spoiler. Neither Steve nor I won, but that doesn't tell you who won, because we had a bunch of guests for the first time ever. That many guests, at least. So that was a lot of fun. We were provided a few different options for quote unquote punishment episodes. We had an initial movie, which we might still talk about, so I'll keep it on the back burner, but it went off of streaming unexpectedly, and then we didn't have access to it. So then we were provided a few other options, one of which was the movie that we talked about here today. And I actually believe, correct me if I'm wrong, mentioned this at least briefly on our kind of best of discussion that we had about 2024, even though I think this was like released in 2024, but it actually like was like released more broadly to streaming in 2024, but it actually had its initial release in 2023. I might just be imagining that. We have established that I have a whole series of memories about the show that only occurred within the confines of my brain. So this might all be made up. And if so, bear with me, because again, I mean, it was really at the end of last year. Who's going to go first? Is it going to be Jimmy Carter, Joe Brandon, or your boy? Which one of us, which one of our brains we're going to give out first? But me and Joe Brandon still hanging on there by a thread.
I like to think that you're just going through like a Total Recall renaissance for yourself. Yeah. And so you just do that, just
I like
plenty of false memories.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like living through an MK Ultra program, but not actually like being put to, evil use at some point. You're just going to remember movies wrong. And then like, that's all it is. That's all. But in this case, you are correct. We talked about it on the kind of the best of wrap up episode. And that's where the winner of the Regal Ruckus heard about us talking about it. They said that was one of the films they wanted us to talk about, because they gave us the movie. And I think we can talk about the movie they gave us and why it went off streaming. They gave us the movie Diced, which is die apostrophe
C-E-D. Yeah. A real creative spot to put an apostrophe, which I appreciate.
Yeah. So they gave it to us, and it was on Tubi just as early as like Monday or Tuesday last week. And then I went to watch it, I think on Friday, and it was gone. And so I did my investigations, and I went to the Facebook profile of the director of that movie, and he put up a post in December saying like they just got bought by a distributor. And so they're actually taking it back. Like they had the license ran out for the way they were running it. So now if it comes back, it'll come back under the license through this distributor. And I've heard that they're also doing some reshoots for that movie as well.
Gotcha.
So,
okay. Well, it sounds like it might be good news for the film.
It's all good news. It's just like it disappeared because they couldn't run that license the same way Bigfoot the movie, the sequel, disappeared.
Yeah.
Because they got bought up by a distributor and is just now coming back. It seems like the same thing is happening with Diced. And also, I think Diced is getting a sequel as well through the studio that bought them. So it's all good news for them. But we just couldn't do it as an episode anymore because there's no way to watch it for the audience.
For the time being. So we'll bring it back around. We'll bring it back around when it comes back up on streaming. We'll talk about it then. But for the meantime, we were bestowed upon us the movie that, like Steve said, it confirmed that didn't happen just in my brain. That we talked about a little bit on our wrap up episode for 2024. We're going to talk about Frogman, even more confusingly, from 2023. But we got a couple things we got to do at the top of the son of a bitchin' show. First of all, I just chugged a double shot of espresso. You saw me down it, Steve. Your boy is fucking beat right now. I am tireder than a motherfucker. Dan, thank you for your condolences. I was up late last night because the Steelers played late game and they did get absolutely smoked. And literally, as I said that, I'm watching the Penguins just gave up a goal literally the moment I spoke. Anything about Pittsburgh sports, it's just going to hell in a handbag right now. I am absolutely tired as fuck. I didn't get back from Denver until after midnight. Took like one of those hour and a half long drives back from the airport because the roads were fucking terrible and people were going 25 on the Parkway. My flight didn't get after 11, didn't get home till after midnight, probably wasn't sleeping until 2, had to get up early on Saturday morning, shovel the driveway, coach 2 basketball games, clean the house, cook, and have people over for the Steeler game. Then today, and also ran 3 miles because I decided it was a cool idea to sign up to run a half marathon. So I have to train for said half marathon. It's not until May, but I got to start running and all that stuff. So I ran 3 miles. And then today, had to go to an ice skating party. So I went ice skating. So I am fucking shredded right now. So I just chugged some espresso, but I do have a beer, Steve, but just heads up for all who may be affected. Your boy's a little punchy right now. Not gonna lie,
yeah.
little punchy. Steve, while I crack my beer here, you drinking on anything over there?
I got a beer and I got a not beer.
Okay.
And the beer is the Von Trapp Trosten. I'll get to that later in the episode.
Mm.
But I wanted to talk about this because it's newish. I haven't had it before, but it's called Freaky Squeeze by Trogs.
Oh, okay, fun.
And this is not a beer, but it's also not a seltzer. It's their kind of twist on putting real fruit and malt together. So it's not beer, but it's also not a seltzer because there's as you can see, there's a little bit of juice to it.
Yeah. So is there hops in it?
No hops.
No, it's just an FMB, kind of a hazy looking, juicy looking FMB.
Yeah. And I mean, it's made with like actual juice, like actual fruit and actual juice. So this one is the spiked peach orangeade. And they do another one that's black cherry and lime. Black cherry and lime, I don't like as much. This one is pretty good, though. Yeah.
What's the flavor of that one? Sorry, I heard black cherry lime. What's the flavor of that one, though?
Spiked peach orangeade.
Spiked peach orangeade. Interesting. So not really any beer flavor cues. Just tastes like boozy juice.
Yeah, it tastes around the lines of like mimosa or what's it? Bellini is the one that's made with peaches.
Yeah, with peaches. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like a Bellini mimosa. What's
the ABV on that thing?
5.5.
Okay, so a moderate ABV. Interesting. I tend to like a Trogs product. I can't tell you I've ever had anything from Trogs that wasn't a beer. But hey, I'd give it a try. Why not? Why the hell not? Did you say another beer? Or you're going to hold on to that sumbitch?
Oh yeah, it's just the Von Trapp Trosten. You've had it.
Oh, okay.
On
the smoked
show
one
before.
Right? Is that the smoked one?
Yeah. So when I pop it, I'll talk about it at the end of the episode, I guess. I'll say, hey, it's good. That one's good too. But you already heard Brian have it earlier in the year.
Yes.
So, and I think Ben had it last episode as well.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, that one's been a real reoccurring friend of the show. That beer.
Friend of the show, Von Trapp.
I am drinking on a brewery that I've been enjoying lately. That I've recently kind of given another shot at many people's suggestions, because I remember when they first came out, I was not a fan, and then I didn't touch it for years because I'm that kind of guy. And then everybody was like, you got to get on board here, because they're really making some tasty beers. And my cousin actually just bought a house right up the street from them, beautiful Blaunox. And so I'm drinking Old Thunder's 340 lager. That's their Helles, which is probably one of the ones you see from them most frequently.
Yeah.
And I've had plenty of times before, but it's the first time I drank it on the show. And it's a tasty old beer. Nice kind of a little bit of a richer, rounder, sweeter, like a denser malt character Helles, compared to, a little kind of like crisper, lighter, more delicate Helles. Actually, I feel like this might be my brain rot or deja vu. I'm not sure, but I feel we talked about it on the show before. But Helles, Munich Helles Lager, remarkably diverse beer style. Like you can get really crisp ones that almost drink like a full flavored American lager, that don't taste too far off from like an MGD or a Coors Banquet or something like that. Mm-hmm. And then you have ones on the other end of the spectrum that can be, quite kind of, chewy and rich in Pilsner malt flavor. So this is a little closer to the latter. I wouldn't say chewy by any means. It's a light, pretty crisp beer, but it's a little bit more dense, a little bit more malt sweetness. And yeah, it's drinking real nice for me right this current second. So, all right. So we've got a couple things here we got to do besides get them beardsies out of the way before we talk about Frogman. We have to spin. We got to spin that son of a bitch. Before we get on that Frogman. We have to just, for some reason I say Frogman, I immediately want to get into like a Cajun accent. Yeah. Oh, you better go talk about that Frogman.
It's fucking Bayou stuff.
I know.
They put this in Loveland, Texas. No, it's Bayou stuff.
Well, isn't it Loveland, Ohio? It's actually Loveland, Ohio.
Oh, it's Loveland, Ohio? Oh,
yeah.
All right.
The even lesser known Loveland.
It is. Yeah, because I remember that sign. Never mind. Anyway, onto our other stuff.
Onto the things and the stuff. We're going to spin that son of a bitch in spinny ass wheel for the month of February. Believe it or not, already, guys. We're already looking forward to February. And then once we get through February, you know what happens? We get right into March. And March is the first month of the year that doesn't suck shit. I mean, it sucks shit, but it doesn't fully only suck shit. Like January and February do. So before we spin that wheel, guys, while Steve brings up that spinny old wheel, let me remind you, if you want to contribute topics to this spinny ass wheel, or you might even be saying to yourself, how the fuck does this spinny ass wheel come into play? Well, here's what happens. We have a showdown episode the first Monday of every single month. We have a guest on, sometimes multiple guests like we did during that Regal Ruckus in January. And we spin the wheel 3 times, gives us 3 different topics. Those topics go out on the social medias for our social media friends and listeners to vote on. They pick one. And once we have a topic, everyone involved in that in that showdown episode gets to pick a movie associated with that topic. And then that's when the gloves come off. Sometimes steel chairs are involved. Sometimes a ladder might even be involved. Explosives, tacks, all no holds barred, slobber knockers galore, and then somebody takes home that son of a bitch championship strap for that given month. Again, nor Steve nor I took it home in January. One of our guests did. Go back and listen to the Regal Ruckus episode for the full showdown. It was one for the ages. But we got to pick one for February because it'll be here before we son of a bitch and know it. So, Steven, pick. Let's spin that wheel and get what our first potential February showdown topic is. The wheel do be spinning. Oh, I like this.
Oh, Bill Moseley Massacre.
Yeah, Bill Moseley Massacre. That is pretty self-explanatory, but this would be any movie involving the great Bill Moseley. I think one of both of our, among our shared favorite genre performers. So we'd be excited to jump into that, especially considering we've probably talked about him on a number of his movies already on the podcast, so we can get a little deeper dive into his repertoire. All right, what's number 2? Let's spin that wheel. Interesting. All right. We have overlooked anthologies. And there's a lot of anthologies out there. Right. And we've done a decent amount, right?
We've done mostly the VHS ones. We've been pretty good about doing the VHS episode every year since they've been cranking them out yearly. But we also did a Christmas one. And then
we did Scare Package. Did we do Scare Package? Or maybe we've just talked a lot about Scare Package.
We just talked a lot about Scare Package. We haven't done those.
Did we do Body Bags?
We haven't done Body Bags either.
No,
we just talk about it a lot.
Yeah, we just talk about segments of it now and again. What other ones? I guarantee we've done some other ones, right? We have to have. Anyway,
nope, not really.
No.
We've also just talked a lot about it, like the ABCs of death. We talk about them. We just haven't done them.
Yeah. Interesting.
So, those are probably all on the table because we've overlooked them all.
I know. Same thing. I feel like we've talked about like Satanic Hispanics too a lot, but we never actually officially did it.
Yeah. Yeah. That one's a lot of fun too. I like that one.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. All right. And last but certainly not least, worst remakes. That is fun. I like a worst, you know what I mean? Because it really throws a wrench in the mix. And when you start arguing about what's bad, that sometimes is, it's a little bit of a, turns the argument on his ear. Because normally we're talking about why everyone else's stuff is bad and ours is better. So that would be kind of fun as well. And you know what? For whatever reason, January and February, those are the types of months where I like to go negative too. Just heel turn and just talk shit on people's art. Just fuck you. Your movie stinks, and here's why. I'm just in a bad mood. I'm pissy. You know, I'm trying to drink less. I'm trying to eat better. I'm trying to exercise, so I'm unhappy. You know. I'm not all fat and sassy and jolly like I am around the holidays. I'm just in a bad fucking mood. I'm working too much. I'm just marching towards the grave, and I'm trying to talk shit on people's movies. Yep. All right, recap. Here's what you're going to have the opportunity to vote on this week. Check it out on the social medias, on Instagram, or on the Blue Sky. Do we have that on there yet? Are they allowing you to put the polls on there yet? Nah.
No, still no polls on the Blue Sky. Okay. I got to figure something out for that platform.
Okay. All right.
Because I don't use anything else that much anymore. So
I know social media is just falling the fuck apart. I'll be honest with you. I have not been posting on the Halloween is Forever Instagram page nearly as much, and that is mainly because I've just been desperately trying to avoid social media because it's a fucking hellscape. I completely dropped Twitter or X, as I think a lot of people have. Facebook's next on the list for me to fucking drop. I just, God damn it, I hate social media. It's an absolute hellscape. But I still am on it all the fucking time, just like everybody else is. So listen, I'm not passing any type of judgment there. And if you are on it, and if you're still, doing the doom scrolling, as all of us are apt to do from time to time, shoot on over and, talk about fun, spooky shit instead of, the fall of humanity. We are going to have the option of Bill Moseley Massacre, Overlooked Anthologies, or Worst Remakes. So that should be really fun. A couple other things at the top of the show before we jump into some get down on a little bit of that Frogman business.
Man.
We have but 2 months left in our current Patreon exclusive podcast series, Youth Group is Forever. For those of you who are already subscribers, for those of you who are joining us today in the Discord, we always appreciate you having you here. If you have interest in joining us on the patreon.com/Halloween is Forever. I told you, my brain is like
punchy.
It's like it's a slush. It's a horchata in my brain right now, just of just brain mash and goop and blood just floating around in there. Go over and check us out on the Patreon, and for a couple $2-3 monies a month, not only could you be joining us live here as we record in the Discord server, but you can also be listening to us on our Patreon exclusive podcast series. Steve made me watch all the Fast and the Furious movies. You can listen to every episode of that. There's 10 of them. They're all like 3 hours long. You don't have to watch the movies. In fact, I would strongly urge that you don't, but listen to us make fun of them. And then you can jump on into Youth Group is Forever, wherein I'm making Steve watch a bunch of dog shit right-wing Christian propaganda horror movies. I've got 2 months left, and Steve's starting to drop a lot of weird cryptic hints about what he's going to pick for the follow-up series after that, starting in March. And I'm getting a little nervous. I'm not scared to admit it's getting under my skin a little bit. I'm getting a little spooked. I'm starting to have some weird panic dreams. I'm starting to look in the mirror and imagine my face melting off. Like just a lot of stress related things. And I think it's mostly due to the fact that I know what's coming down the pike. Well, I don't know what's coming down the pike, but I do know that it's probably not going to be good.
Yeah, it's not going to be good. But I don't know. Maybe I can assuage some of those fears. I don't think it's going to be as bad. But maybe it is.
As bad as colorectal cancer? Like as bad as what?
Yeah, exactly. Just as bad. And then you pick.
Yeah, I was going to say as bad as getting your dick slowly squeezed in a car door, or not as bad as what? Yeah, I mean, it's all relative.
I can definitely tell you it's not as bad as getting your dick shut in a Cybertruck. I can tell you that. Can't be as bad as that.
No, that would be rough.
Because that's not only is that you losing your dick, but that's also having to tell people how you lost your dick.
Yeah.
And like it's the compounding embarrassment of like, oh, I was near a Cybertruck and I let it take my dick. And now like, that's just over embarrassing. Like there's other ways to lose your dick that are like way cooler and it's okay.
That might be a good shirt though. I let a Cybertruck take my dick. The Cybertruck door hinges are the Grim Reaper of dicks. Anyway, so check us out over on the Patreon, and like I said, give it a little subscription over there. Help us out. We love it, and if you like the show and you want more of us talking at you, there ain't no better way to find more of us talking at you than subscribing. All right. Anything else, Steve, before we jump into this son of a bitch in Frogman?
No. Stay tuned for a TV show recommendation after Frogman.
Oh yeah. Well, what have you been watching? Because we're gonna talk about this movie a little bit, but I feel like we haven't had a Minisode, a one-on-one episode in quite a while, because we had our little break where we split things up around the holidays. And then we obviously had the Regal Ruckus, which was a big to do. So what have you been, what kind of spooky media have you been consuming?
Well, see, that's the thing. It's not spooky. So that's why I just want to put it at the end of the episode.
Okay.
And just tease the people out. But I found something fucking crazy. Yeah. And it's something you'll really enjoy. All and right. I think you could even watch it with your kids if you wanted to.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I have been doing I actually haven't been watching a ton of spooky movies. Around the holidays, watch a lot of the regular Halloween. I can't speak tonight. Holiday horror, right? And then I've been watching a ton of anime. Honestly, I've been on a quite an anime kick. I think I mentioned back in December I rewatched Berserk, the original 25 episode from 97. Love that show. And obviously that's a horror. Well, it's like an adventure fantasy, but then goes about as horror as you can get. Yeah. And then what else? And then I watched the Dan that I know a lot of people are talking about, and that's kind of fun, and it's very sci-fi, has some certainly some horror elements, supernatural elements to it, which is kind of fun. And boy, what else have I been watching? But just a whole shitload of anime. Oh, right now I'm rewatching Cowboy Bebop, because I haven't watched that in 20 years. Which is genre, but certainly not horror.
Did you ever watch the Netflix live action of that?
No, it looked so cringy that I didn't. But if somebody suggested to me it was good, I would check it out. But nobody did.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
We'll just keep that going.
Okay.
Nobody has.
The original series is so fucking good. It's just such a fun show. And you know what? I played my first horror, albeit not a hard, horror, not super intense horror. I played my first horror video game in quite a while. I haven't been playing the video games in recent years, besides, Mario Kart with the kids or Mario Party or something like that. But I played Crow Country. Have you seen this one out there? I played it on the Nintendo Switch. It is an old school. It's like a retro PS1 game. I mean, it's a modern game, but it's meant to replicate like it's very heavily influenced by like the original Resident Evil, right? So it's a retro PS1 style survival horror game. Little sillier, a little more cartoony, and a little more of a sense of humor than the Resident Evil games, but a really fun game. And it's set in a goddamn zombie infested amusement park. So that's right up my alley. Cool. It's like a fucking Scooby-Doo episode. But it's survival horror. It's like, limited resource management type of thing, or not resource management, but, limited resource, like classic survival horror kind of tropes. And you're very much playing as like a Claire Redfield type, right? And you're just solving a lot of puzzles, a lot of fun little puzzles. Nothing tremendously difficult. You know, I played through the whole game and, oh boy, couldn't have been more than about 10 hours or so. But really fun, enjoyable, you know, solid little story, really cool atmospheric stuff. And like, yeah, just really nostalgic of those late 90s, early 2000s survival horror games.
Yeah. I saw like a little bit of footage from it and everything, because I've seen other people playing it, and it looked like it was like Final Fantasy VII kind of character models.
Super blocky, like the yeah, that's a good representation. It's somewhere between. It's not fully as blocky, where it looks like they literally have square hand. Well, they do kind of like that, but it's not quite as blocky as Final Fantasy VII. But it's a little bit more so than even the first Resident Evil. But yes, it is a bit of a slightly more cartoonish, not quite as bleak Silent Hill, because everything is, you know, it's foggy and raining and all that kind of thing a lot. So. But it was a fun little game. So that's kind of been where I'm at, you know, reading. So I finally got I've been reading these on and off for the last couple of years, getting through all of the Clive Barker Books of Blood. And I'm on the last one in that series, which is Cabal, I think it's called. That's like his last official Books of Blood book. So work my way through that. Rereading Nightmares and Dreamscapes, which is another short story collection by Stephen King, which is not his strongest short story collection. There's some fun ones, but there's some. I don't know the exact timeline, because I don't know when he wrote a lot of these stories necessarily, but it definitely feels like he was out of his gourd on a variety of substances while writing some of these stories, because there's one about a town called Rock and Roll Heaven. I think the story, which Stephen King fans will know it immediately. This is only my second time reading it, and the last time was 20 years ago. But it's called like They Have a Hell of a Band or something like that, I think. And it's about a couple that just gets like lost and ends up in a town called Rock and Roll Heaven, where like the town is run by dead musicians, like Elvis Presley and Janis Joplin. And it's just like such a fucking, like, you could not be in your right mind and write that story.
That doesn't come from a sober person.
No. It's not a bad story. It's just so fucking dumb. And it's like for like a bajillion copy, a widely respected, insanely popular writer to put that out at that point in his career, his brain, I think, was mush.
Yeah. He was a little bit cooked, because he was basically just writing a story that is the exact same things that like your stoner friends tell you about. Like, what if like when we die, like we go up and then like D. Snyder, he's in charge of the record store? Wouldn't that be fucking cool?
Yeah.
And then like Jimi Hendrix is the milkman? Damn.
He's just like, this is when he was drinking like a case and a half of 16-ounce cans of Miller Lite a day. And and every moment he was writing, he was listening to AC/DC at full volume. Like that was several years of Stephen King's life. And this might have been when this story was written. Anyway, so that's the things I've been getting on here in the last month since we got too deep into it. Anything fun horror related? I know you got some non-genre stuff to talk about. Anything else worth talking about?
Let's see. One, I mean, everything I watch, I usually wind up putting in the recos on the Patreon, but one I'll give you for free is I started the George A. Romero's Resident Evil doc. That is about like his time when he was supposed to be directing the Resident Evil movie. Yeah. And I started it. I didn't finish it yet, but like they really gave care and craft to making it like Resident Evil, the game. Yeah. Like there's just a lot of like references to Resident Evil, the game in there. Yeah. And it's really fun. It's like, it's a fun watch. I kind of fell asleep on the early part of it though, because they basically are just kind of rehashing a lot of George's career. So it's like, yeah, I know all this. And then I fell asleep on that. So, but I'm waiting to get into the deeper lore of like how Constantine Films fucked him over, and like how like he was basically a sure thing, for a time, because like Capcom hired him to direct the original Resident Evil 2 commercial for Japan. And I remember seeing that commercial. Like, I remember hunting it down. That was one of those things that like I wasted all of my bandwidth watching. Know? Like, wasted all my internet points for the week trying to watch that, because I was like, fuck yeah, George Romero is directing something. He's directing something.
Sure.
And like it ruled.
Yeah.
So yeah, it ruled. But then they got fucked over by this production company, and then they made the Paul W.S. Anderson thing. It's not the first one isn't terrible, but like every sequel is just ugh.
Yeah, it gets so bonkers, and just, I mean, besides from like an occasional reference to Umbrella, like feels like they have nothing to do with the universe of the video games. I did not see that commercial until much, much later. It just wasn't on my radar when it first came out, but I was obsessed with the Resident Evil games, so much so that I remember the second one, which I played both discs of that game on PlayStation. I can't even guess how many times. I probably beat that game 10 times combined between the two, the Leon and the Claire discs. And that was the first game I remember distinctly faking sick to stay home from school and play. Like, I was just obsessed with it.
I don't remember faking sick for it, but I do remember one of my friends just inviting me over to his house to play it for him. Like, it was probably one of the most earliest forms of Let's Play. I had a friend who he wasn't allowed to own or play those games because they were too violent. But he had like a time where like his mom was at work, so he just invited me over to like play it through as far as I could. Yeah, and then like I had to hide it afterwards.
Nice.
Like, when his mom came home. Yeah.
I did. I actually played the second one first. I owned the second one, played both of those, and then went back. And it was when the original Resident Evil, the director's cut came out. That's when I went back. That's when I went back and played the first one. But I mean, obviously great members of those ones. And then just Nemesis, and then 4 I absolutely loved. And then I have not played a Resident Evil game since. I don't know why. I just kind of stopped playing video games for the most part around then. Like but in any case, I should go back and play those games. All right. Anything else worth mentioning before we get into? I know we're putting off this Frogman, and for people who are just itching for some Frogman, we're just edging you here. We're just frog edging you right now, which there may or may not be some frog edging in the movie. We'll talk about it. Let's get into this film. So this is my second watch, because I did talk about it after watching it, before our wrap up episode. But this is the first time I would say, obviously pay close attention, took notes, all those sorts of things. This is directed by Anthony Cousins, who we may or may not have talked about before, but we talked about some projects he was involved in. He did direct, I think, 1 or 2 segments in Scare Package. I don't know if he did Scare Package 2. I'm looking into it right now. Okay.
He did. He directs the segments The Night He Came Back Again, part 4, The Final Kill, and Scare Package, which, like, they're very funny parodies, obviously, of like slasher films, and then the slasher films where people, the killer is resurrected and shit like that. Yeah, they're very funny parodies. So yeah, I think all of Scare Packages, both of them are just like, they're funny anthologies. Yeah, but they have like a lot of great performers and a lot of great effects in them. So check both of those out if you haven't. Other than that, I don't think I've seen anything else by Anthony Cousins.
I think, and I might be wrong about this, but I'm looking through right now. It appears that Frogman is his only like feature length directing credits, because he did a short in last year, The Last Thing She Saw, which again is a short. Fat Fleshy Fingers, which appears to be a segment in an anthology. Or I'm sorry, he directed the segment entitled "Oh Comely," which I assume is an anthology called Fat Fleshy Fingers. Scare Package 2 we talked about. Another short prior to that, Scare Package 1, short. So I think this might be his feature length debut in Frogman. But this is a low budget. So it's a found footage movie, but it's one of those movies that kind of split the difference between like mockumentary and found footage a little bit. And then the very end throws a little bit of a curveball in that structure as well. But this movie, I will say, I'll spoil up front just the general feeling I had about it, because I think I said this when we talked about it before, is you watch 45 minutes of kind of nothing happening, and then stuff starts happening, and then the last 20 minutes is just bonkers, which is real fun, like last 25 minutes, I'll say. But yeah, leading up to that, little bit of a slog at times.
I would call it more 56 minutes of nothing happening, because that's when I noticed my head was in my hands watching the movie.
I'm being a little generous. Because I really do.
It's fuck you. It's January.
Yeah, it is. It's fuck you, January. You're right. But I will say the last, so the last 20 minutes, right, are really fun. And the first hour, and then the hour and 10 before that, roughly, you're just like, oh boy, I could do without all this. But I get it. Yeah. It's a setup. It's a slow burn. And I will say, I absolutely felt it was worth a watch, but there were some things that did make it troublesome at times, but we'll get into them as we go a little closer. So again, like I said, found footage based on a real life cryptid, which is the Loveland Frogman of Loveland, Ohio, which is again a real life cryptid apparently that people talk about, certainly not as well known as your Mothman and your Bigfoots and your Jersey Devils and things like that, or your Chupacabras. But this is one I feel like I've heard before, but it just might be very similar to another one I heard before too. Yeah. And you get pretty much everything you need to know from the name. He's a goddamn frogman, right? Mm-hmm. He's a damn little frog, big for a frog, little for a man, somewhere in between. He looks like about a 3-4 foot tall, little hunched over bipedal frogman. So the beginning was kind of a fun, early, first 5 minutes, or at least culminated in a fun little scene, because you got this family on vacation in Loveland, Ohio, and which obviously real destination. But they're there, and it seems to be they're there for recreational purposes, and they get lost and they see a dang little frog boy on the side of the road. And that's and the little boy in that movie. Now, this was a home video from supposedly back in 1999. And the little boy of this family is a boy, a girl, and parents. And he is the star of the kind of flash forward the rest of the movie. He's grown now. His name's Dallas, and he's a struggling young filmmaker who has been somehow emotionally affected by what he saw in 1999, and he's a bit of a failure to launch case, you would say, right? He's in his 30s at some. I don't know if they ever call out exactly how old he is. They might say what year it is, but I don't remember. But he's, I would say in his 30s, right? Late 20s, early 30s, perhaps. And he lives with his sister and her husband, just kind of mooching off of them. And he's struggling to make it as a filmmaker. He's not really doing much, right? He's just kind of chilling. And he's been I think he has a conversation with his sister's husband, pretty early on, and he's like, hey, we expected, when you said you were going to stay here for a little while, it wasn't going to be like 2 years or whatever long it's been. So you get a setup right off the bat that, again, it's this kind of failure to launch type situation. He's kind of a bit of a freeloader in that way.
They do call him out as like he's 32 at this point.
Okay.
And it's because it's from that Jeremy J character. Because from the original, home movie footage, we jumped to this fucking obnoxious YouTuber, Jeremy J.
Oh, yes, we did talk that, which was kind of fun. It was kind of a fun exposition way of giving us some exposition.
Yeah, it gives you exposition and catches you up on the past however many years, the past 22 years. And then Jeremy J is like the most hateable fucking character.
Yeah.
He's what's the fucking Ghost Adventure? Zach Baggins. He's a Zach Baggins for cryptids.
Yeah.
And like you fucking want to punch his face.
Yeah. I will say this cast of characters, one of the more hateable casts of characters I've seen in a while. I don't know that there's one person that shows up on screen during this movie that I don't want to at least at some point punch. Which I don't know if it is a really significant detriment or not. But we ultimately get this like group of 3 characters that go on their version of the Blair Witch escapades, but looking for the Frogman. The second one we get introduced to, so we have Dallas, the struggling filmmaker, who then eventually says, like, he's kind of hooked on this, and he says, hey, I'm going to go, that's what I need in my life is to go, this thing that's haunted me since childhood. I'm going to go make a documentary and find the Loveland Frogman. So he goes and meets up with his former videographer, cameraman, and friend. His name's Scotty. Scotty is, like shooting weddings. He doesn't seem to be really pleased with the direction his career is going. He goes into his place of work, which is like a coffee shop or a cafe, and is basically trying to talk him into doing this. And Scotty's like, nah, I'm not interested. Fuck this noise. Right. So he's trying to convince him, and they decide they're going to go to this going away party for the third friend. Her name's Amy. She is an aspiring actress who's moving to LA. They're having like a going away party for her. You get this feeling right off the bat that Dallas and Amy have some history, which is confirmed later, some romantic history. And eventually they talk Amy into, starring in this movie. Scotty gets drunk and agrees to participate in the project. So now we've got our crew of 3. Dallas is, a creep and supremely unlikable, that character. And I couldn't tell if that was intentional or not, but the character is like, they set him up as being kind of this like somewhat either unreliable, doesn't really follow through with things, whatever, but he's also just kind of creepy and selfish and just unlikable. And again, I don't know if that's, I get the feeling it's some of those things they want to communicate, but I didn't know. I'm not convinced that they wanted to communicate it to that degree that we get. At least for me, that's how I experienced him.
Yeah, I think with the way the character ends up, like, yeah, he has an arc, but it's just an arc to a worse person. Mm-hmm. So it's an interesting kind of, spin on, he doesn't grow. He doesn't stop being a loser. He becomes a worse loser. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's on purpose. I don't particularly love the actor playing Dallas either. And
that's why it's like, I think it's a combination of things, because it's not a strong performance. And that contributed a lot to his dislikable nature for me. Yeah,
because a lot of it is later in the film when everybody is at an 11, he's still at a 5.
He's at a 2.
It's offset.
Like it's crazy. I have that in my notes where I'm like, he is nonplussed by what he just saw.
Yeah. Like, he's unbothered. He's not urgent about anything, and it's just like, I don't know if that was on purpose or not?
Well,
Because
so
it is noticeable. It's very noticeable is what it is.
Extremely noticeable. And I kept waiting for something to happen to make that behavior make sense the first time I was watching it. And I will say there is a, it's not a post-credit sequence, but it's like, there's like that first little bit of credits and then the story keeps being told. And then there's a bit of a reveal before the credits proper run. And I will say I missed that the first time I watched the movie. So it made it make just a little bit more sense to me, but still is not explained. And again, I don't know if it's that is supposed to explain his bizarre temperament or if it's just not a great performance and I'm giving it too much credit. I don't know.
I don't think those ending bits explain the temperament because he doesn't know it's going to work out the way it does.
It doesn't, but is there some sort of, when you get into cryptids and all this stuff, like anything is fair game. So is the idea that he actually was telepathically connected and he was being drawn there for his entire life because he's, descendant of frog occultists or something, you know what I mean? Quite a long stretch to get there, but it's also nothing is really explained about his connection aside from just complete coincidence when he's a child. And it feels like there is more to it than that, or there should be more to it than that, but I don't know. We'll get into a little bit more because we have a long way to go before we get that far, but I'll go through, we'll go through the story pretty quick because there's not an enormous depth of story here, but we get a lot of these like candid, a lot of things are explained. And I mean, this is one of the things I know you've mentioned you don't like about found footage is like explaining the story gets really, really sticky and a lot of suspension of disbelief has to happen for like, why are there constantly quote unquote candid conversations happening on camera and stuff? Like people are putting down the camera pointing it towards them. Why was the camera on at this exact moment when they confessed their reminiscence about the time they hooked up together and the camera just happens to be on at that exact moment? And they sort of explain it as like Scotty knew, but then the camera's on again when Scotty is explaining that to wait, you're
Amy,
saying like, Scotty knew? Because I know
for a change Scotty knew.
I always thought Scotty doesn't know.
Well, that's what they were under the assumption that Scotty doesn't know, but Scotty knew this time.
Scotty did know this time. And even like when they had that initial conversation at Amy's party, it's like, why is the camera running and pointing towards them? And neither of them are calling attention to the fact that the camera's pointed right at them. It just feels like a real world testimonial segment. Like every time they're having conversations.
Actually, it felt like an episode of Cheaters where they have the
what's that guy's name? Was Tommy Greco or whatever? I don't know, not Tommy, but something Greco was his name.
It was something Greco. What was the other? Not Cheaters. Oh, Blind Date. It felt like Blind Date.
Blind Date they just was a little bit more
trash.
Yeah, that was a little. Well, I mean, so was Cheaters, but Blind Date.
I think it was the same production company. It had to be.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like they had the same like suite of like graphics and stuff for like and fonts for the names and shit.
Yeah.
Anyway, so here we have the crew, right? We've got Dallas, we've got Amy, and we've got Scotty. And also we get introduced to the idea. They also do this thing where they keep introducing more elements to the story that we were not organically introduced to in any way, but they just bring it up like it happened off screen, and it just plants the seed so that when we hear about it later, we're not like, who's that and why and what? Like at one point he's like, and we got to see George Hale. And they're like, yes, of course, George Hale, the other guy that is a Frogman guy. You're like, what? Like at one point they're like
noted Frogman enthusiast.
Like when they're doing the whole like, I mean, this is heavily influenced by the Blair Witch Project. And, they do all the kind of man on the street interviews with the locals like they do in Blair Witch and so many other, found footage movies like this. And, they're talking to people, and the people in town are just like, yeah, what do you think about the Frogman? He's like, you know what? Frogman's is cool, and I don't even know if I think that they are a cult. And then they cut to the next guy, and he's like, yeah, and what about how they impregnate human women? And they're like, what? We didn't even say that. It's just like a lot of
who said that? Who brought that up?
Stuff that's like being shoehorned in that they just want to make it seem like, yeah, this was part of the story the whole time.
Yeah. These yokels fucking organically brought up all of these elements that you will see in about 40 minutes.
Yeah. And I get it. Some of them could have not gag, but the idea is that some of them could have been involved from the beginning, and we learn that townspeople were involved later on, but like not the whole town. It's just like a few weirdos, but
I did appreciate the one guy though who said Frogman fucks. So,
yeah, he was kind of fun. He was like vaping or something. I forget. He was just smoking a cig, but he was just packing cigs and then rolling them back up in his sleeve. Yeah. Like that dude was cool. And he also was the most believable guy. Like, yeah, I know 40 guys who look exactly like him. They also go through town, and there's they stop and talk to a girl who's selling ice cream, like at the Ohio version of Brewster's or whatever. Yeah. But she's, standing at the window. Yeah, like teenage girl. Yeah. And she's going on this thing where she's like asking, she says, I believe that most people are either rats or frogs. And it's like, okay. She's like, I'm a rat. And it's like, oh, hell yeah, this girl's pro Ratma. Yeah. It's what I figured out. I did for a quick moment. We're like, was that a purposeful, reference? Like, I don't think so, but yeah, it's like we have two cults in town, and you're either on Team Rat or you're on Team Frog. I'm into Ratma. Yeah, hell Ratma. I think they're setting up a Ratma meets the Frogman movie at some point. They are doing a sequel. That was just our first straw. They are doing I saw that the Frogman 2 is in production, so this is highly possible. That would be sick. That would be absolutely sick. Because these movies have that segment from VHS. What was it, 99 or 95? Which one? I forget. 94 maybe, I think. No, 94. Right. You're right. I think you're right. That and that segment and this movie have a lot in common. Right. Yeah. But so yeah, they're going around town doing a bunch of nonsense. So they leave next morning, and now we get like 20 minutes of just like road trip footage that just made me want to shoot my head off. It became long. It might not even have been that long, but it felt like 20 minutes of, and also, like I said, none of the characters are likable or have any chemistry. So it drags. At least for me, this section really dragged. But we do get a little bit of stuff about Amy. We eventually, like you said, Scotty overhears while he's like pretending to be sleeping in the back seat and records, of course, which is like, if somebody did that, like, they're like, oh, fair game, you sneaky minx. But in real life, you'd be like, fucking weird move, Scotty. You're kind of a fucking creep. Fuck you. What were you going to use that for? Like, what is the point of that? Pervert? Yeah, were you going to like blackmail somebody or like jack off to it? Like, what was your deal? But anyway, we know that they're, longtime friends, Dallas and Amy, and they kind of had like a one night stand. And then they're like, yeah, we never really talked after that. And like, it's clear they both have feelings for each other, but they're trying to, like, neither of them want to seem like, and neither of them want to admit it. And Amy's potentially moving away. And it's it's that whole thing. And also, like, Dallas had a girlfriend, I guess, like for a long time that just broke up with him. But Amy has this whole character she wants to do, which is this like Southern Belle type of character, which I forget the name. Yeah. They mentioned it a few times. What she's Norma Jean, which is like a little bit funny, I guess, because it's so cartoonish. And I think the reason it plays their advantage a little bit, and certain elements of this, is when shit gets bananas in the last 20 minutes, it goes really bananas and pretty dark. And all this silliness up to that point adds to the dramatic tonal shift, which I liked and thought was the most surprising and interesting part of the movie. I could see why it could be a little jarring, but
it's also the only way they kind of inject like any other character into her outside of the girl Dallas pines for.
Yeah.
Like
otherwise she wouldn't have anything to do, right?
Yeah. Like if you remove this, her zest for life to be Norma Jean.
Yeah.
If you remove that, she's just standing around with her thumbs up her ass and just waiting for Dallas to like ignore her or, hit on her, one or the other.
Yeah.
Otherwise, she's not doing shit.
Yeah. So I didn't mind it at all, but it becomes it becomes a much needed point of conflict between Scotty, Dallas, and Amy. Whereas Scotty and Amy are not taking this whole Frogman thing seriously, nor should they. But Dallas is taking it very seriously. But he's taking it seriously in like a angsty teenager writing a song way, not like in a I'm actually trying to make a documentary film way. Like he does almost no directing besides like telling Scotty to like point the camera at times at certain things. So again, Dallas just doesn't. The performance is just like he doesn't show any type of passion or really emotion almost at any point besides just like angstiness.
Yeah, there's no passion and there's no competency.
Yeah,
because like you said, like he's just telling Scotty to fucking point the camera at stuff. So like there's no competency, and we've already been set that up early by Jeremy J, who was busting on Dallas's previous films before he quit being a filmmaker, because like his previous films were just kind of the the dumbass shit that you make with your friends, which he did.
Right.
He made dumbass movies with Amy and Scotty, and they weren't good. And now he's a failure. And now he's been a failure for so long that he doesn't even know how to direct a film anymore.
Right.
So I don't know. I get that because I couldn't anymore. Yes. You ask me to direct a film, I say no. I don't know how to do that.
and both of them say no. Steve and Dallas.
And I pout. And I pout. And Dallas pouts. And we both pout. And we say, we can't do this. You're ruining our film.
It's really a biography of Steve. He's secretly from Loveland, Ohio. He's secretly obsessed with Frogman.
It's one of those ways. No, Brian, I'm still from PA, but I'm obsessed with the squonk.
Oh, that is your Frogman. Yes, of course. If you're not involved with Frogman 2, you should be.
But no, it's the one way I connect with Dallas.
Fast forward 20 minutes and you're sobbing, defending Dallas to the dying on that hill. I get him. I understand him.
I understand why he did what he did.
He spent all his money on that sweatshirt. I would have done the same thing. So they check into this. So you start to get this feeling when they're interviewing the locals that it is very much it's a fun little tourist trappy thing, right? In this little town, there's a bunch of little. It's like when you go to Point. What's it called? West Virginia, where the Mothman's from. What's it called? Point. Can we say Point Pleasant?
Point Pleasant.
Is it Point Pleasant?
Yeah, I don't know what. Is it? That's what's in my brain too. So.
Yeah. But you go to that town and there's a statue of the Mothman, and you can get a little gift shops that sell Mothman t-shirts and stuff like that. So there's a small little cottage economy around around this particular cryptid in Loveland, Ohio. And one of the places they stay is at the Bullfrog Bed and Breakfast, which of course is a little hotel bed and breakfast that the three of them are gonna stay in. So they check in and they get creeped out by the proprietor, this older woman. Her name's Gretel. So they go up to the room, and Amy and Scotty are not really taking any of this seriously. They're partying and being obnoxious, and Dallas really isn't having it. They start asking about like underground caves and cults and wands and impregnations and it's just shit like that with the townsfolk, and they're all just like obviously know all about it for some reason. Again, it's this whole touristy thing, so it's not super far fetched, but it's pretty inauthentic the way that all this stuff is brought up with the townsfolks. But then they go into this gift shop, and also they just find this like entrance to a cave system. It's like right in the middle of town, like off the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Which was unnecessary, frankly, for them to see that. It was strange.
It's unnecessary. It's one of those things. It's like seeding it for the future part of the film.
Mm-hmm.
When things, because like, okay, when Dallas sees the cave off just like this street that they're just walking down a street in the middle of an Ohio town.
It's not even like a back street. It feels to be like a relatively high traffic street.
Right. Yeah. And then Dallas just sees this opening and he's like, it's a cave. It has to be the cave system. It's the cave system. And you're like, you're watching it and you're going, Dallas is full of fucking shit. Like this is like, this is so stupid. Get off of that. Go back to the gift shop. Go do whatever else. But then it turns out later in the film, oh, those actually were caves. You're like, oh, well, I guess I kind of feel the fool now. But yeah, it's so awkward and out of place the way they just happen upon it.
Yeah,
and it's yeah. I do like in the gift shop though. They got some sweet shirts in there.
Yeah,
like Frog Around and Find Out and MILF, Man, I Love Frogman.
I did not see that. That's fun. That's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get introduced to Woody. You know, he's the guy who runs this quirky little shop. And so here's when. So there's like a frog. You know, I don't know. It's like a flute of sorts. I don't know. That you use to call the Frogman. You see that. You see that Dallas is really getting deep into this. And this is why I thought that there was like more was going to come out about Dallas's relationship or like preordained involvement with the Frogman. And he doesn't, right? It really doesn't. I mean, it kind of does at the end. We'll talk about it. But there was a lot of things that suggested that was going to be the case. One is he's like, you know, really into this, not just going to see this and make this movie, but he seems to have some sort of like obsession with the Frogman, right? He then is like so much so that like when they're in the car, he's listening to Frogman themed like doom metal, this band called Frog Lord. And I was at first was like, okay, so he's, you know, hey, you're on a road trip and you're looking at you're listening to a playlist on Spotify about whatever, you know, about the thing that you're on the road trip for. That's not that far-fetched. But then I found it even funnier to imagine that actually he's just starting to get deep into frog culture, and that band doesn't have anything to do with Loveland. It's just a frog core band.
Yeah, it's just its own frog core band from elsewhere, possibly from Louisiana.
Yeah, that seems like if there was a frog core band, it would be from the bayou somewhere.
Just tangentially to that, just because I've had a similar experience very recently.
Where you temporarily got super into frog core.
It's close, but I Spotify put Spotify has a release radar of like, here's new music, and they put this band Acid Witch into that playlist, and they had a song called Elves, and it's literally just a retelling of the movie Elves in fucking sludge doom metal style. The fucking song is so stupid and fun, but they just retell the movie Elves in 4 minutes of fucking sludge metal.
They basically take that one scene where the guy's explaining Elves to the other guy and spread it into 4 minutes.
Oh, well, they actually take the clips from the...
Oh, really? They literally cut it? Okay.
Yeah, they literally cut that scene into the song, but then the rest of it is just telling everything else about fucking Grandpa's shitty book, and, you know... And at one point, the song mentions how she has big tits, and like it's so fucking...
Guys, two things. One, if you don't know what we're talking about, go watch the movie Elves from 1980. I don't fucking know what.
1987, 89.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
And second of all, the algorithm works. That's what I'm learning from this conversation.
Yeah, 1989. And then go listen to our episode, and then go listen to Acid Witch's song, and then you're all good.
Yeah.
You're all caught up on else.
You're all caught up. You got all the knowing you got to know. So the next morning or next day, it was like more of in the afternoon, they all decide to go start hiking towards Frogman Point in an effort to see, of course, the Frogman. And it's getting dark. And this isn't like a deep in the woods hike. This is like this is like a paved path type of hike. So it's not like they're deep in the wilderness or anything. And again, by the way, we're about halfway through the movie at this point. We're like 40 minutes in. Nothing has happened. Not a fucking thing. But right now it's getting dark. So now at least things are getting a little tiny bit spooky. They see something, and it kind of looks like a person in the woods in the dark. And Dallas just kind of loses it. He's like, Scotty, like, point at that. And Scotty's like not necessarily doing what he like wants him to do. So Dallas is like grabbing the camera, and he's just like desperately running after whatever this thing that they found, is. He's this is the first time you really get this idea. Not the first time, because earlier on you see all of Dallas like reading all the internet comments and YouTube comments and stuff, getting really pissed off because everyone thinks he's crazy. And this is where you see is really how desperate he is to show people that he's telling the truth, right? And he tackles what he thinks is the Frogman, and it's a kid in a costume. And he immediately, gives up the info that he's paid by, the town folks or what. I don't know exactly who pays him. At first I thought it was the guy who owns the shop, but then they all seem to blame Gretel, or Greta, whatever the fuck her name is. But he is basically paid there to scare tourists and, just basically, I don't know, help incubate this little weird cottage industry of tourism around this cryptid. So they go back, and for some reason, again, Dallas is super pissed at the bed and breakfast lady about the costume. And she basically tells them to leave town. And then pretty quickly things degrade into, leave while you still can, which is, a pretty abrupt shift in tone from we hire a guy to go out in the woods and scare tourists to I'm going to murder you. So it's
vague threats about your own impending doom.
Yeah, it's a bit of shift in tone from I think is it Gretel or is it Greta? I wrote down.
I think it's Greta.
Is it Greta? Because I remember the first time Gretel. I'm like Gretel, like no, Hansel and Gretel. Okay.
No, it is Gretel, yeah.
Hansel and Gretel, but all right. Then I thought that maybe there's some like weird Germanic lore to the Frogman. Who fucking knows? Anyway,
there's just German people in Ohio. That just happens.
That's true. Yeah, I don't know where Loveland is, but let's imagine this is in the Amish country of Ohio. Then they're headed back out to check out what's Dallas is even more determined now to figure out Frogman shit. They get pulled over, and the cop gives them some similar warnings, but it's more like hey, you're harassing my gal Gretel and you're causing trouble in town. So go back, check out, get your shit and get the fuck out of here. And Dallas is like, sure, officer, we will. But as soon as he goes away, he's like, no, he insists on, he has to go talk to George Hale, the aforementioned George Hale. And essentially he goes and talks to George Hale, and he knows a little bit. He and his buddy years ago while hunting for mushrooms or something saw the Frogman and like took a picture of him. And so he's like the local crackpot, I guess. But then George tells this, he's just a classic old weird hermit, right? And they ask him about the cult that worships the Frogman. And George gets real upset and obviously is kind of like scared to talk. Like he doesn't want to, he's worried that he's going to be like in danger. We see a picture of his granddaughter. So there's a little bit of like foreshadowing regarding a granddaughter. And he mentioned something along the lines of like, well, I might as well help you out because after tonight, it's not going to matter. And they're like, Oh, all right. Well, what's going to go on tonight? Obviously, something bad's happening with aforementioned frog cult this evening. And so George gives them a map to find where the Frogman's lair is or something. Basically hands them a piece of paper that says map to Frogman. And they're like, hell yeah, jackpot.
Yeah, Frogman here.
Yeah.
you are here, Frogman here.
You are here, Frogman here. So they go into the swampy woods and follow the Frogman map. And it takes them to some slimy trees and a lot of frog noises. It's all still pretty silly at this point, right? They set up camp for the night. And then Dallas like goes off by himself to like use his. Apparently he did buy the frog flute, which we didn't see him buy, but he's got the frog flute out in the woods. Amy goes off to get some firewood, and Scotty's like, "Fuck you all." He's like pissed at this point. He's going to bed. He's like, "Wake me up if something happens." Right into the tent. They aren't really alarmed when Amy just like doesn't come back. But Dallas does find big frog footprints, and Scotty's like pissed because he thinks that Dallas is making this all up, I guess. I don't know. But they go back to the tent and it's got slime on it. Frog slime. And Amy is still gone. And now all of a sudden they're concerned about Amy. And they are running around looking for her. They find her in the woods, and she's been she appears to have been hypnotized in some capacity, right? They wake her up, and she's, being telepathically, like, I guess, summoned by the Frogman or something. I don't know. She thinks she's only been gone for like a minute, but in reality, she's been gone for like an hour. So she's got some missing time there. They start hearing like not just regular frog noises, like basically if Bigfoot was a frog, like there's a lot of like rah, Bigfoot type noises, but then overlaid with like bullfrog noises. It's a weird like soundscape. Yeah, it's a weird soundscape going on. And they hear these frog noises and they start running towards it. And now the camera starts acting weird. And this is an element that I understand the reason why this is, convenient in the filmmaking process. But also, I didn't like it. It basically, the camera starts going AWOL. It's kind of getting this like weird analog choppiness and the film's like skipping kind of thing. And Dallas says, quote, his powers are probably causing telekinetic interference. That's the word for word explanation of why we're getting this effect on the camera. I can imagine this really pissed you off.
Didn't love it. Kind of annoyed at that, because now we're seeing a whole bunch of images that aren't happening. If it was just like a weird magnetic interference that had like vague imageries of trees and lily pads and flies, just frog stuff.
Frog stuff, right? Exactly.
Just frog stuff.
Yeah.
It's what Frogman thinks about. Frogman thinks about trees and lily pads, and if it was just that, I could have gone along with it. We're getting so many different angles of like Amy doing screamy jump scare face, and I'm just like, boo, move on.
Yeah. It gets really annoying really quickly. And also it gets like really, they overdo it to the point where it's like just straight up seizure inducing at one point. You're just like, this is becoming a little difficult to watch.
Yeah. Which is just kind of like, it's just bothersome because you can do so many more creative things rather than just like the normal stuff. And I guess that's my one big hang up about the film all the way up to this point is none of what we see feels new. Like the film feels very much like Blair Witch and like Willow Creek all the way up to this point.
Sure.
It's not until things go way off the rails do we get like a whole bunch of crazy stuff. And I'm still just kind of like, all right, 20 minutes of fucking wackadoo stuff is great, but 56 minutes of rehashing every other found footage film we've seen is just like, I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah. I mean, we'll get to our final criticisms at the end, but it, to me, I mean, it very much felt like a first attempt at a feature-length film. Like, it wasn't paced well at all, but had a lot of good imagery, had some really cool practical effects, which we'll get into in a second here. So he had like a really good short film and had a story to tell, but yeah, the pacing and everything was troublesome. Anyway, this is really when things like kind of hit the fan, or about to hit the fan. The tape needs switched. They're like, all right, we got to keep going. We got to find the Frogman. We're hot on his trail now. The tape's out. All right, switch the tape. While they're switching the tape, Amy starts shooting on her phone. And so now we have, which I was under the impression this was like, I don't know. It didn't feel like 22 years later. I don't know. I guess it makes sense that it was, but I don't know. All this, it felt jarring to me to see her shooting on an iPhone. But anyway, we've now have two cameras, right? So Amy's shooting, and then they do switch the camera, right? Switch the tape in the camera. I'm sorry. So now Scotty's shooting again as well. And as he puts the camera in, turns the camera back on, the light goes on, and there's a big ass Frogman right like between them, like Scooby-Doo style between them, which was it was a well executed jump scare, because you didn't expect to see Frogman literally right behind their heads, like 6 inches from the back of their heads. So that was kind of fun.
Right.
And then, so here we are in the last like kind of 20 minutes here. A lot of shaky footage of Scotty just like running, the footage glitching, frogs, Bigfoot sounds overlaid with bullfrog noises. Eventually, Scotty gets like, we don't really see it because Scotty's the one holding the camera, but he like gets attacked. And we do see what you kind of get. You can kind of tell it's like a tongue of sorts. And I think at that point, it was what that was supposed to be. And then Dallas and Amy do come in and save him, and they all run back to the car. And then as they're escaping, you do get a cool shot of Frogman looking at them. He's on the roof of the car. He's looking at him down through the sunroof. It's kind of fun. And Dallas, they're driving away. And you're like, wow, they actually did, escape. Dallas is psyched. He's in his mind, he's got the proof that he needs to like vindicate himself. They're all obviously relieved as they drive away. They go back to the bed and breakfast. Scotty, not looking good, right? He's
not looking good.
Nah, he's got some skin stuff happening. What would you say? Kind of a boils almost, but also an amphibious skin tone.
Yeah. It's like boils, but also maybe warty is a good
wart's more than
for that.
Yeah, wart might be better than boils. And then he's barfing, and things aren't doing good for Scotty.
I'll say, just jumping back to the scene where like Dallas is in the truck and like they're on their way out. Mm-hmm. Amy and Scotty are both traumatized from this.
Yes.
And this is where we kind of get Dallas's, I would say this is Dallas's almost complete transformation to just being a shitbird.
Yeah.
Because he's so pleased. He's so like, he hasn't really shown much expression throughout the whole movie, but in this one scene, he's actually smiling.
Yeah.
Like he's smiling about everything they just went through because he's so concerned about like proving Jeremy J wrong and, like making everybody understand that the Frogman is real, that he's not a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
Even though he's been an asshole the past 22 years of his life.
Yeah.
I'm not the asshole. You're the asshole. Everybody's an asshole but me. Right.
Yeah. And he could not give a shit less about what's happening to his friends. He only cares, like you said, about him being vindicated in the eyes of, the public, I guess. Anyway, so Scotty's not doing great. They're hearing like some chanting and some weird sounds, and they follow it. And for a quick second, I thought it was going to be really fun. I thought it was going to be like, I started to get, speaking of Resident Evil, like almost some Resident Evil 4 vibes. Like we were going to be in a haunted frog hotel for a second, where they were going to be like the cult was going to be in there, but no, they do go to a more frog-like environment, which I'm not mad about, but a matter of personal preference. I would have liked Wacky Frog Hotel for the last 10 minutes, but they follow him into this tunnel, and then a tunnel leads to another tunnel, and a tunnel leads to, and eventually they get to this room of all these, classic kind of cloaked occultists with masks on. And we quickly see that they are led by Gretel from the bed and breakfast. And she's saying frog stuff, right? And we start to hear the context, and we start to realize that she is performing a marriage ceremony between their Lord and master and God or whatever that they worship, which is, of course, the titular Frogman, and a beautiful young lady whom I thought at first was George Hale's granddaughter. But
just another rando.
Just another rando. Because we never really got a really good look at her. We just saw her in a photo. But anyway, just some random woman. And we do get a great line from Gretel, which is, "May your union be blessed with healthy pollywogs," which I thought was very, very fun.
On top of that, though, in the chant, you hear like they're not fully saying ribbit, but it is like a form of ribbit.
Yes,
and they're also saying a form of croak.
Yeah,
they're
like saying frog things.
Ribba. Yeah, they're saying frog stuff, but it's like it's the most. It's like the dumbest child brain way of doing things.
Yeah,
of like ribba, croak, and it's like. Why would the frog really be into that?
Well, because we know what frogs sound like. Listen, Steve, you ever have one of those little things as a kid, a piece of plastic with the farm animals, and you spin the little thing and whatever it lands on? What did the frog say? Ribbit, ribbit.
Frog said ribbit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Frog said ribbit. Cow goes moo.
Right.
But I'm not bashing the film for doing this because I just really love dumb cults.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I like dumb cults because I think of like Midsummer,
sure,
where they have like this this big system that they have set up, and they have all these rituals and everything, but they're led by like just a simpleton, who draws in their book, and like that's why you can't take them seriously. So I love when Ohio does H.P. Lovecraft, This is the Ohio version of the Mormon Church, by the way. Yeah. So I love when they do this. So they're just like, I wish. The only thing I wish is Frogman was dumber. Yeah. Like, I wish he didn't actually have a wand. Mm-hmm. I wish he just had like a stick that he liked to show people. Like,
they were reading into it. Like they were, But Frogman, he's just a dumbass who just likes to like lick locals. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He just likes to lick locals, and it just so happens, not a mystical frog wizard. Yeah. He just so happens has the ability to turn people into frog people and impregnate women. Like he just has those abilities, but in reality, he just wants to show you his stick because he's a fucking dumbass giant frog. Yeah, he's got a frog brain. Yeah. But no, I mean, at this point, we do get the idea, at least, that the Frogman is like intelligent to some degree, I guess. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But right as Frogman is about to lick his bride, that is when George Hale pops out with a shotgun and blasts at the Frogman. I don't think hits him, but an errant shotgun blast goes off and everyone scatters. And George, grabs the girl. He's trying to save her. He was disguised as one of the cult members, which is funny because that's a classic Scooby-Doo bit. Just put on an outfit of what the environment is, and no one counts how many people are there, and they're just like, oh, that must be a new guy, It's like a Spaceballs bit. Yeah, Shaggy and Scooby have been a part of so many rituals just by, walking into it and just like, oh, time to put our cloaks on. Nobody questions like, hey, one of those guys is a dog. Did we always have a dog member? All right, I guess so. Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't paying attention. But now we get this wacky chase scene. And we start to see that some of the cultists are half Frogman, which is confuses not that we have a deep lore here, But that does confuse things a little bit. I mean, we do see already that Scotty is turning into a frog person of sorts, but maybe this is one of his servants that live underground with him, and some of the people in town, like Greta or Gretel, are maintain their humanity for some reason. None of this gets explained, but we do see that at least some of the frog people are cultists are half frog people, which is kind of fun. They meet up with Amy, and everyone at this point, frankly, we're giving Dallas a lot of shit for it, but everyone's way too calm at this point. They finally get to like a somewhat safe space where they find these big, nasty, like egg sack things. And they're all just like, well, what are we going to do now? Like, they're just not that plussed by the whole thing. And then also they find these big, nasty, like leathery kind of egg sacs. But they have they have humans in them. One of the humans, they open up the egg sac, and it's George Hale's granddaughter. Okay. Which is like, all right, fine. Maybe they were putting her in some sort of cocoon because they're going to turn her into a frog because she's going to be the next frog bride or something. Whatever. A lot of possibilities. But then the granddaughter immediately gives birth to a mutant frog baby. And then that opens up a lot of more questions for me. Why was she incubating in an egg sac if there was a frog baby incubating in her? But so why did even if it was like an incubation, like it looked like an egg. So why is the thing that's giving birth inside an egg?
I don't know.
I don't know.
That's just, it's just, they're just making shit up.
Yeah.
Because they're just doing Shadow over Innsmouths for dumb Ohio people.
Yeah. And you know what? That's fine. Because at this point, you're just seeing a weird, sloppy, wet little frog baby that is just like flapping its frog
flipper arm
flippers, I guess. It almost was like, it looked like it was half like part frog, part person, part like stingray or something. Man, I don't know.
Well, Brian, as we've already been told, they will have polywogs, and polywogs are in that intermediate.
Sure.
Because you have the tadpole, and the tadpole goes to polywogs, and like in that period of gestation, those little creatures are much more fish-like than they are frog-like. So
okay, that makes sense.
That's what we're seeing.
Yeah, you're right. But they look back at Scotty, and he's all frogged out now. Like Scotty is sufficiently frogged. And they ask Scotty what's wrong, and once again, Scotty does not know. He does not know.
Scotty doesn't know. At this point, Scotty doesn't know. Scotty knew some stuff before, but Scotty doesn't know now.
At this point, Scotty does not know. Dallas takes this moment, and this is what type of scumbag sociopath Dallas is. He takes this moment when their friend they've just seen that their friend is a frog, half human. This is all his fault. Amy is at best traumatized, and at worst gonna get eaten and or impregnated and or just slowly turned into a frog. But he finds it appropriate at this point to declare his love for her, which is just such a fucking shit thing to do in this moment. And he's like, well, I might not get another chance. And you're like, yeah, we all might not get another chance for anything, and it's your fault. So maybe let's not worry about your emotional baggage right this moment, Dallas.
Yeah. It is just the total like immaturity as well as selfishness on Dallas's part, because he was told earlier in the film by Scotty, hey, tell Amy how you feel when you get the chance.
Sure.
And it'll probably work out well for you. But he waited all the way to this point as they're surrounded by madness, and there's a good chance one or all of them is about to die.
Yeah.
And he thinks like, hey, let me saddle you with this right before I possibly die, maybe?
Yeah.
Or before you die. Who knows? I hope we both die.
Yeah, at this point, and also I need to reiterate, he has put them all in this position, so it makes everything 10 times worse. But anyway, we start to get these little looks into Amy's psyche because she's having, I guess, frog flashbacks. I don't know. She's linked now telepathically because of whatever episode happened to her in the woods, where she had this lost time with the Frogman, and now we see images of the Frogman with his magic Roman candle staff and all these analog scrambles that we've been seeing over and over again. Now we cut to Amy is being dragged. We see like her legs getting dragged into like another area, and then cut to her. She is fully cocooned up in the Frogman's super long tongue. And I don't know what Pokemon that is that has the big long tongue, but that is what he looks like, except for he's bipedal at this point. So he looks like a big frog with a big, long, crazy tongue that is like wrapped around Amy, like not unlike a pig in a blanket or a pretzel dog kind of situation.
Yeah, real pretzel dog.
Yeah,
no Amy ants going on here.
Yeah, we got Amy ants. Anyway, that wasn't funny, but she's just kind of. And then the best part about it is the frog has the tongue and she's laying on the ground, but he's just kind of standing there chilling. And he looked in that moment to me like a Bandai, like a Super Sentai villain, you know?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Like Rita Repulsa, Power Ranger style. Like Rita Repulsa had just sent him down to Earth the way he was standing there.
Yeah. Just no, they never have any urgency. They are just there to absorb getting punched and kicked until they explode in sparks.
Yeah, until Rita throws down the staff and then they have to fight the Megazord. But Dallas uses the Frogman's own magic glow staff against him to save Amy, and then so Amy is released from the tongue. Then George pops out again. It's like a fun house at this point. It's just people popping in and out of caves, running in directions, completely directionless. There's not really a goal besides just to escape, right? And George is like, follow me, like he's leading them out of the cave. Well, I thought that George was going to turn out to do something bad at this point. Like he was going to lead them back into the cave to like distract, and basically like sacrifice them so he could save his granddaughter or something. But he just doesn't. He just leads them out in the cave and he's like, hey, follow this creek and you'll go back to town or whatever. And they're like, oh, aren't you coming? He's like, nah, I got to go back in because I got to save my granddaughter. But we never get any conclusion to that at all because and we think there's going to be, we have a couple minutes left in this movie. Something's going to happen. Now they just go back to town. And then they get close to town. You can kind of see the lights of town. And Dallas is like, hey, we did it. We got back. And Amy just like breaks down and cries for a long time. And you thought like she was going to turn into a frog or she was going to give birth to a pollywog or something. But no, it just kind of cuts. And we get this text update that says, basically no one took this footage seriously. Scotty's still missing. Dallas and Amy haven't seen each other in a year. They didn't end up together. Oh, and also George and his granddaughter were never seen again. and I'm like, oh man, that was pretty abrupt. And then we see that the credits roll, but that was the credits of Dallas's movie. So this the documentary inside the found footage mockumentary. So we're like Inception level found footage documentary mockumentary happening right now. But we see that was the end credits, and Frogman has premiered at presumably some sort of film festival. And,
Fantasia Fest.
Yeah, and they're clapping and it gets a real big ovation. Like it's a big pop, right? The crowd loved it certainly more than we did, but they're really loving the whole thing. And some guy comes up on stage and he's like, hey, hope you like Frogman. Now welcome the director, Dallas fucking what's his name? And then he doesn't come up, and it's like, Dallas, what's his name? Where you at, buddy? Come up on stage. And then we cut to the backstage to the green room or whatever, who knows. And Dallas is just sitting there. And we keep hearing the guy keep introducing him, like starting to get a little panicky. Where's he at? And we're just seeing Dallas like stare off distantly. So, we're like, oh, Dallas is I don't know, traumatized by the whole thing. He lost his marbles, whatever. And then we get a few more credits. Then we get another scene, and he's not responding to the request to go up on stage, but the people are chanting his name because that's how much they love this documentary. And then you look down, and Dallas has the staff, Frogman staff.
Yeah,
and then the real credits hit, and that's the end of the movie. So the question, of course, it's left purposefully open-ended. The question becomes, what is Dallas going to do with the staff? Is he just there to finally prove is that stick going to prove anything? The answer is no. So I like to believe that he is about to blast the whole audience with Frogman magic.
That's what I assume he's going to do.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not the whole audience, but he's going to blast somebody with Frogman magic just to prove a point.
Yeah. He's about to go full domestic terrorist with a Frogman's magic staff, which is kind of a wild twist. If you think if you think about it, probably more than it deserves to be thought about, it's a pretty wild twist. The more you think about it, the cooler it is. I'm not going to lie.
See, when they showed the original footage of him just kind of sitting in that room by himself with, I think he has a drink as well at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, there's like a reflective moment of like, oh, he realizes he sold everything out. Like, he sold out Amy and he sold out Scotty.
Yeah.
And he sold even himself out putting this movie out.
Sure.
Because still nobody believes him, but he's getting the fanfare of like, oh, you made a cool Blair Witch.
Sure.
You made a Blair Witch and we all love it. We love you for it. Hooray, Dallas. And he's like still unsatisfied because, he's not getting, nobody understands that the Frogman's real.
Yeah.
Why won't nobody understand this?
Yeah. You heard the ribbits and the croaks. What more proof do you need? Why won't anybody
get this? So they could have just kept it with that.
Mm-hmm.
When you add in that he's going to Frogman magic the audience, it's like, okay, so like I guess that's got to be the jumping off point for the sequel.
I hope so. I hope so. He goes full domestic terrorist, and it goes to a crazy. It's like the next one is not a weird cosmic crypto horror or crypto zoological horror movie. It's just a straight up like action film, and it's
countrywide manhunt.
Yeah, countrywide manhunt, heisty type of thing where they're just trying to stop. Dallas is like Bane, but with a frog stick. And Amy has to go like full, Jason Bourne to stop a Dallas and his frog stick.
When Loveland is in ashes, you may have my permission to croak.
Yes, that's what I want. That's the Frogman 2 that I want. I don't think that's the Frogman 2 that we get. And frankly, Steven, I don't think it's the Frogman 2 we deserve, but I hope that it is.
I hope. Well, okay, so they've already given up the ghost in this film that we're no longer in a found footage film.
Sure.
So the next one doesn't have to be a found footage film.
And I hope it's not. Yeah. Go Blair Witch with it. Because that's what Blair Witch did. We did Blair Witch.
Right.
And then we did Book of Shadows or whatever. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which is movie, guys. Blair Witch 2, Book of Shadows, kind of fucking rules. I don't know how you feel about it.
I don't think I've seen it in like full. I've seen like parts of it on TNT and then walked away or whatever. But yeah,
I'm not saying it rules. I'm saying kind of rules.
Kind of rules.
Check it out. Anyway, I mean, obviously I've made my thoughts on this abundantly clear, which is overall not my favorite film in the world. but it did some fun stuff. It took some big swings, which I value that. And the last 20 minutes I had a lot of fun with, but I had to get through, an hour and 5 hour and 10 of a slog to get to a fun last 20 minutes. But I'm also kind of used to that at this point. So like I probably do that once a week. So
sure,
I'm all right. Some other people might really get pissed at this movie. People who value their time,
I feel like this is a movie, like, if you can make it to the crazy 20 minutes, it's like a reward.
Yeah.
But I'll never rewatch this movie because I'm not going through that first hour to get to the 20 minutes again.
No.
Like,
I didn't like
the
it.
20 minutes. Yeah. Yeah. You don't like it. It's bad.
The first time I talked about it, I mean, you go back and listen to me talk about it. I think I brought it up one of the movies I liked the most in 2024. Yeah. And now I went back and watched it a second time to prepare for this. Did not care for it. But that's because all the fun I had in the last 20 minutes was spent the first time. Right. You're not going to get that again because it's like waiting in line for 3 hours for a ride or to go through a haunted house you already went through once, Yeah.
That's a good analogy for that because the whole thing is the final 20 minutes is a twist on the Blair Witch formula of Blair Witch just ends with Mike standing in the corner staring, and you feel like you don't feel satiated by anything. Whereas you get to the final 20 minutes of this film, it's frog pregnancy, frog cult, wizard staff. Holy shit. You're just overloaded with nonsense. And it's fun. Like, I enjoy that. And I enjoy that so much I will watch Frogman 2.
Sure.
But I am never going to watch this movie again.
Yeah, I wouldn't suggest watching it again. I did it a second time. Would not encourage you at all. Yeah. No new surprises. Actually, this time, due to my just sheer ignorance and the first time around, where I let the streaming service, because I watched this on Screambox, and I just let the streaming service do the countdown to the next movie is going to start as soon as the credits roll.
Yeah.
And so I didn't see the full reveal with the stick at the end. So I did get that fun little reveal at least because
that's fun.
So better than nothing.
You got an extra piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, it's like I finished the cereal and I got two little treats at the bottom, and I missed one the first time, and I went back and I was like, oh hey, I got another Mr. T trading card or something.
Yeah. I mean, if you watch the credits even further, you get the extended cut of the frog chant, so you can really just get into the river crow.
Yeah, you can commit that to memory and so you can fall asleep thinking, listening to that in your brain. All right, guys, that was Frogman from 20 and 23. You know what? Go check it out. Obviously, we spoiled the hell out of it for you. If you haven't checked it out already, you know what? Do or don't. I don't give a fuck. So here is also one thing to remind you of. Go check out us on the social medias at Halloween is Forever this week on Instagram and vote in our poll in our Instagram story whether you want us for the wonderful month of February for our showdown topic to be Bill Moseley Massacre, Overlooked Anthologies, or Worst Remakes. And also, if you have suggestions for those movies, for any of those movies for those topics, rather, send them our way because there's a lot of fun ones in there, and there's going to be some deep cuts as well. All right, Steve, reveal to us what your non-horror suggestion is it a TV show?
Yeah, it's a TV show. So first, Von Trapp Tristan, excellent. Smoked dark lager,
still
love
good.
That beer. I love that beer now. But I had Jeff Bezos beam something into my head because I was watching a series on Prime and I fell asleep. And then I woke up to a new series in my head, and it is the most batshit thing I've ever seen.
Nice.
And I couldn't believe that it existed. It's a show from 1994.
Okay.
Called Space Precinct.
Space Precinct.
Yeah, Space Precinct. and it's a TV show that lasted for one season, 24 episodes. It was made in Britain to be shown over here.
Okay.
And it is so dumb, but it is so crafty. So the setup is a guy who was a cop on Earth is now a cop on a space station overlooking another planet.
Okay.
And it's full of aliens.
Yeah.
But it's just still doing the same cop procedural, but with aliens. It's
like NYPD Blue, but with aliens.
Right. But it's also super, super fucking dumb.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's a plot line of one episode I'll give you.
Yeah.
Well, I'll give you two, actually. One is just Terminator. They just do Terminator for one episode.
Sure.
But
time travel and going back to kill the person who's going to end the world and whatever. Yeah.
Yep. So they do Terminator for one episode. Another episode is there's a separatist group of aliens who go around conquering worlds.
Okay.
And nobody knows how they conquer the worlds. But how they conquer the worlds, or how they're going to conquer this world, is that they have been illegally importing golden retrievers from Earth. And yeah, like immediately your face just went.
Yeah. Well, and also, as you said that, I'm just looking down at my golden retriever, just laying there like a fucking idiot on the floor, just looking up at me.
Yeah. So they illegally import golden retrievers, and then they say they had this shell company they say developed a vaccine for the dogs to live off Earth, because otherwise they get sick from
space rabies or whatever.
Yeah, they get a space flu and they die. So they say they got a vaccine for the dogs. So now they're vaccinating the dogs and then giving the dogs out to people. Now, the dogs aren't actually getting vaccinated. They're getting injected with a reagent that they hit with a sonic button to do assassinations because it turns the dogs crazy.
Oh my God, it's a Manchurian candidate dog.
They do Manchurian candidates with dogs.
It's Manchurian candidate golden retrievers. Wow, that's
But
I like that a lot.
You have these insane plot lines. Everything there are so many extras with the alien makeup on, and all of the cityscapes are like these amazing miniatures. And
where is this streaming? Did you say? And I missed it.
It's streaming actually on a lot of places, but it's on Prime/Freevee right now. I think it's also on Roku and Plex. So yeah, it's free everywhere you watch it, but it just came out of nowhere. Like Jeff Bezos beamed it into my head. I've never seen such a thing before. And it's just the most insane show I've ever watched. But there's something it's super charming because everything is so stupid and bad, but the craftsmanship is so great. I don't know. I love this show. I'm in love with it. I can't stop thinking about it.
Actually, Dan in the chat here might be onto something here. Maybe the reason that Jeff Bezos zoomed this into your brain is because RFK Jr. is going to remake this, and he wants to drum up some interest, and he's going to remake this. He's taking all the money out of the Department of Education or Department of Health or whatever he's going to be in charge of, and just putting all that money into remaking this series, and it's going to be shown at all the new re-education
or
camps.
They just might do it in real life, because the first time Trump was president, we had the creation of we had the creation of Space Force. Well, now we're just going to have Space Precinct, and we're going to have space cops. So we might just get it in real life.
I like that.
And then Manchurian candidate dogs.
I like that too. I like all this. I like all this stuff. Lasers, squirrels with lasers strapped to their backs. I like all this stuff. All right. Anything else we got to throw out here before we wrap this sumbitch up?
No, I don't think so.
All right. Well, guys, we're back on our bullshit here at 20 and 25. So we'll have minisodes for you the rest of the month, and then get ready and go vote for what you want that February Showdown topic to be. And as always, send us recos. Send us recos. Slide in the DMs if you feel so inclined. We're always looking for fun. This time of the year, I like to switch it up and find some new stuff. I was on the big J horror kick and just a lot of Asian horror as well, Korean and J horror. And now I'm on this anime kick. And, you know, maybe after I'm done with Cowboy Bebop, I'm in the mood for a change. I need something new. Send us
Space Precinct.
I'm already going to watch Space Precinct, but give me what's coming up after Space Precinct. All right. For the Halloween's Forever crew, I'm Brian.
And Space Precinct.
You're not Space Precinct. But when you immediately, as soon as you said Golden Retriever, I looked down at my dog and he looked up and I think he heard you. So
yeah, well, he knows. Just don't let him get hit with the sonic beams and then he won't kill you.
All right, I might be dead. Bye.
Bye.